Next, Nier. What do you have for us?
Um, yeah, so I watched Ubel Blatt.
Sorry.
Um,
What is a Ubel Blatt near?
I don't know actually. I kind of looked it up.
Is that? Can we
And
translate?
apparently
Serious?
some
Sorry, you should know. It's a musical thing.
some people were saying it
Yes.
translated to like Dark Blade, and then I saw some other people saying that like they were German and it's like literally fucking gibberish. Um,
But near, don't you know? Don't you want to become the Blattmeister, the
yeah.
Blade Master?
Um,
Blah.
yeah, I think Blatt is Blade. But I saw some people saying that like Ubel put before Blatt, like it's like a meaningless, like it literally doesn't mean anything. I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I don't know a fucking single thing about German, so I literally
Yeah, me
I don't
neither.
know.
To
I'm
be
pretty
honest.
sure
Doesn't
it's.
Ubel mean? Doesn't Ubel mean evil?
I think so, but
Evil
like I
black.
think what I was seeing is that like grammatically, like the two words together they don't mean any, like it's meaningless.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, what do you? It's Japanese. They love
Yeah, I
their
mean
fun German.
it's a Japanese author that picked two German words that sounded cool and slapped them together, right?
Yeah, near. What
Um,
is a free run?
True. Good point. Um, but yeah, Ubel Blatt is a uh the seinen. Yeah, this is a seinen series.
Uh-huh.
It is a revenge story fantasy um series that is pretty old. Actually, it's a pretty old series. The manga started serialization in 2004. Um, has 23 volumes and finished
It's
serialization in
old.
2019. So it had quite a long run. Um, I remember seeing this like back when, I was reading like um, Berserk and Hellsing and stuff. People would mention Ubelblatt to be like, yeah, like if you're done with these, you could go read Ubelblatt. Um, I was looking into it. Apparently the manga ended up trailing off into like really dumb like global politics kind of stuff, and it stopped being like
What?
a revenge story, which was really odd. Um,
Okay.
but it's finally got an adaptation. Um, this is done by Satellite and Staple Entertainment, um,
Okay.
which I think is a relatively
Satellite I
new.
can get, but
Yeah, Satellite is whatever, but I think Steeple is like a relatively new thing that got started with just random assistant production stuff. But yeah, um, yeah, the basic premise is our main character, Coinzel, is a reincarnation, I guess, of a one of the legendary heroes that was betrayed by his party. He was killed, and then the people that betrayed him sort of took the credit for the great big epic hero deed that they did, and they sort of founded their own um, you know positions of power based on you know lies, basically, right? And
Mhm.
he's come back, sort of reincarnated as this weird half elf thing. Um, and he's out there for revenge. He's gonna kill them. There's seven of them,
I'm
and
dead.
so that's basically the premise, right? It's a dark fantasy world where people get killed for literally no reason, and yeah, it's a revenge story. It's pretty
So
much.
what is the focus in how do put this? In terms of screen time, in terms of the story, is it based upon his introspections on the reason for wanting revenge and that sort of developing kind of thing? Is the focus on the world building? Is the focus what is the focus on here?
um well, so you have to keep in mind this is a 2004 seinen series at the
Mm-hmm.
start, right? So the focus right now is basically how many times can the protagonist kill somebody? Um,
Nice. kill. I love it.
Yeah,
It's so not woke.
yep. And that's pretty much it. They're kind of just right now. The story is basically
What is this,
just
like Jackass? Like we're just
yeah,
like
pretty
doing
much.
stupid shit.
Yeah, the protagonist is sort of just on his like, I'm gonna take revenge. He encounters the rough band of characters that sort of accompany him along the way. You've got the
Why
young
do they
elf
accompany
girl,
him? Is my
because
question.
so you've got the young elf girl, which he saves
Yeah.
early on.
Oh, okay, 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 okay. I
She's
see.
sort of indebted to him. You've got the older dude, which who saves Coinzel, and he's got his own sort of goal, and he sort of tags along just because he's got his own sort of initial goal, and then he gets wrapped up into the whole um, intertwining stories that they've got going along. There's the other girl who's a former smuggler who's kind of just like along for the ride, I guess, because due to certain events, you know, basically where she was living got fucking obliterated. So she's kind
Mhm.
of just along for the ride. And then there's the other sort of female warrior princess character who's kind of like she's out for revenge against Coinzel.
Mhm.
But then due to certain circumstances, she ends up joining the party. Because it turns out that her quest for revenge was like I guess misguided or whatever. Um, yeah, it's sort of your standard seinen party, right? Like they all sort of come together due to random circumstances, and they're like, oh, I might as well just come along. I might as well join
Do they
you,
like help him
cause
out during
you're
the
cause you're
fights? Like
strong,
what's
and
happening?
yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes they do. It is very. I mean, and I guess the easiest comparison would be like the party that Guts has in Berserk, where sometimes they'll help out, sometimes they're kind of just like, man, uh, he sure is strong, right?
Mhm.
It's a little random, right? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's a
So
pretty standard dark fantasy seinen party, um, cast of characters. Yeah.
so this is essentially, and forgive me for giving into memes a little bit here, but this is revenge isekai before revenge isekai, right? Essentially. So i i let's say we have something like redo of healer or whatever, right? One of these sorts of more recent versions of this I'm gonna kill people, I'm gonna get my revenge, it's gonna be so cathartic kind of series, right? Could you is there a difference that you feel from watching this series and that sort of similar themes versus watching something like Redo of Healer?
Um, I mean, this is a lot less of a power fantasy. Like, this isn't really just like a, oh man,
Mm.
he's so cool and
Okay.
badass and epic, and he just kills everybody, and he's awesome. There is some like the early story is very simple, right? I will say that. But there are
Mhm.
moments where, like, it's obvious that again, I haven't read the manga personally. I mean, I might have read a few chapters of it like way back in like 2006 or something. But I don't fucking
Mhm.
remember, right? So, um, I will say that this series does feel like it's truncating quite a bit, but early on, there are quite a few moments where Coinzel has like these sort of more emotional moments, like these more vulnerable moments, um, where like you know, he's not too sure of what he's doing, or he's reflecting back on his journey, like his previous life or whatever, and he's sort of having to cast those memories aside in order to, seek his revenge. And they're
Mhm.
not like just pure like, oh, I need to fucking kill everybody. They're a bit more human, as brief as they are, right?
Right.
So I will say
Right.
the series separates itself in that regard pretty early on, where Coinzel isn't really just like this. I mean, he's edgy, right? He's edgy, he's badass, he's cool, he's got fucking swords shooting out of his hand and shit. Um, but like he is a bit more uh human, right? Um, which is nice, I guess. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, it's pretty standard, right? Like you kind of know what you're getting into with this series. And to be fair, I think
Hmm.
it does um the edge lord, sort of chuny aesthetic pretty well, I'll say. Like pretty much every character has some really long, hard to pronounce fucking German name. All the random like states or whatever that they're listing off out of nowhere have like really dumb, you know, German names, and obviously to the Japanese, anything
Yeah,
German is like badass and fucking awesome, right? Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so it does that very well. The characters designs they're very early 2000s coded, right? Like you've got
Wow, I
um
guess this reminds me of dot hacks so much. It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
even
you got
funny.
cloaks, you've got,
It's
the
actually silly.
tattoos, the scars, the hair colors are vibrant. Um, you got boobs hanging out, you got butts hanging out, you got
The
belts.
eyes, the
Yeah, the
eyes.
the
Oh
eyes are
my
definitely
god,
very, very early 2000s coded, and it's very um I mean, I don't know. It rocks,
nostalgic.
right? Like it's very nostalgic. It does harken
Yeah,
back
yeah,
to a sort of era that, um like shit like this doesn't really get made anymore. You know what I mean? And if it
yeah,
is
yeah,
like
yeah.
if we do get like super edgy stuff these days, it is like redo of Healer where it's like it's just like
Yeah. Yeah, the
slop. You know
problem
what
I
I mean?
think you mentioned it before where the issue is that it starts leaking into becoming too much of an on the nose power fantasy instead of just saying, yeah, instead of focusing on the revenge part, it's more just I'm and not only am I going to have revenge, I'm so stinking powerful that all the girls love me, which is a slightly different theme.
Yeah. Um yeah, I think this series it's very obvious that it's quite inspired by Berserk, obviously, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, it doesn't have like the big monsters or anything constantly like Berserk has, but the tone and sort of just the random death and oppression of the peasantry from the sort of nobility in the world. Um,
Mhm.
the world building's pretty light, but when it's there, it's kind of just like, yeah, the people up top are fucking evil, but they pretend to be good, and the peasantry eat it up because they're fucking stupid, right? Um, it's stuff like that. The sort of cast of characters, um, just the way the main character behaves and stuff. It is very um like early 2000s inspired by Berserk type of series. Um,
Mhm.
it's not super unique, but it's fun, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. As for the audio visuals are okay.
What
They're
studio is this again?
pretty satellite, and I guess the
Yeah, I
Stable
forgot you.
Entertainment.
Yeah, you mentioned this. Yes,
Um,
yes, yes. Yeah,
they're
satellite.
they're pretty rough sometimes. They do their job, I think,
Mm.
in most of the action scenes. However, this series is, I mean, I'll say
Hmm?
it's very mid 2000s coded, right? Like even through the audio visuals, like you get to the point where you're having the characters like swing their sword and the screen goes black and there's like the one like white line that goes through, and it's like, yeah, okay. Or you'll
So
you'll
is this being done on
you'll have a
purpose?
character
What's
dying.
happening?
I doubt it. I doubt it. But it's funny, right? That it is
Mm.
sort of coincidental that it's very similar to the way very early or mid 2000s like action series were, especially fantasy series, where it's like you'd have a character dying and he'd be like a still, and the camera kind of just pans or rotates or whatever.
Mhm.
There's quite a bit of that. It's not like the series isn't ugly by any means, I will say, um, but it could be better, right?
Mm.
It's got a nice color palette, I will say. The series takes place like almost exclusively at nighttime, right? Because the main character sort of gets his powers from the moon. He seems to be able to like regenerate his wounds as long as he's under the light of the moon. Um, so it's pretty much always at nighttime, and there's always this sort of red haze in the sky. There's two moons in the sky
It's
as
the
well.
most chuny.
Um,
I think, God, have you
Wait,
ever reviewed a more chuny series during the history of this podcast? I don't think you have.
I mean, this is really up there, right? Like this is really,
I think
really,
I covered Eminence and Shadows, right? Or
yeah, yeah,
Toast?
yeah.
Toast, did you cover it? I
nope.
covered it, right?
I think you covered it.
Yeah, yeah. So you
Um,
definitely like for you, this is definitely the most chuny thing you've covered,
yeah,
like
this is
ever
pretty
in this
definitely
podcast.
pretty up there. But
Yeah.
yeah, like there's two moons and one of them is red and one of them is blue. And they're almost always like crescent moons and they're like intersecting with each other and it looks fucking
God.
awesome and badass and
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
like I said, the character has this sort of magic ability where um the gauntlet on his hand sort of breaks apart and blades shoot out of his arm and they're like they're like dark and they've got this haze around them and it's like pure fucking
Mhm.
like chuny wank fest, right? And I'm here for it, right? It rocks.
Yeah, in a good way.
um
Like it's leaning it, especially I think this is one of those series where because it leaned into it so much, even if let's say in the 2004 you were that guy who's like, "Oh, this is crazy," or whatever. I think at this point, at our age, and with this series, from that age, whatever, it's aged like a fine wine, where it's so cheesy, and because it leaned into it, it's now, oh, like this is nice. This is nostalgic.
yeah, it's, I mean, it's peak, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But yeah,
Cinema, baby.
the color palette's really good. I will say there's very little CG, which I think is pretty impressive. It's commendable. There's a couple moments of CG that are like, man, that shit's ugly. There's a scene early on where the main character is sort of like riding on the back of this dragon thing, and it does not look good. I will say it looks very bad. But um, that's like the one of the only instances of like really egregious CG I've seen. Um, and yeah, I mean the animation is serviceable, I'll say. Like the colors are nice. The animation is decent to mediocre. It varies. Um,
Mhm.
but it does its job, right? Um, the music is pretty standard. It's about what you'd expect from a random fantasy series. Um, the OP is kind of boring, I'll say. Um, it's Zenin by Gardenelia, which is kind of a
Oh,
callback.
okay.
Um,
Cardinal.
it's
Okay,
a
yeah.
little nostalgic. The tune is quite nice, I will say.
So, like,
But
did the author really? I think the author had a huge hand, probably had a significant hand in kind of calling out some of these people, at least, right? Because this is so many like
probably,
different throwbacks and like different
yeah,
stylings. Because
probably.
so, for those of you who don't know, authors of the original work can have quite like wildly varying amounts of control over their series. There are some people that just kind of let it go, and it can become quite different, or just very like standard kind of tools and cast members that exist at the time, or they can have a lot of control over their work during the anime creation process. And it's like a lot of those people are because the author said, I want this voice actress or I want that artist or whatever. So I feel like this is one of those cases, maybe.
The ED is Stella by Hina Tachibana. She
Okay.
voices the little elf
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
in the party. So it's nice.
Little elf or fairy?
She's an elf. Yeah, I forget
Mhm.
what they call. They don't call them elves. They call them some weird thing like Muriel. Yeah, Muriel. Very weird.
Never good enough to just be say elf, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Gotta.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, the ED's kind of it's cute. It's your sort of
Uh-huh.
standard more mellow track, right? Um, But yeah, as for yeah, the audiovisuals are they're solid. Well, they're okay. They do the job, right? Um, as for the adaptation, which I think is probably the roughest part of this, because again, I haven't read the manga, um, but I really feel like there's a lot of truncation going on here. Because this series moves quite quickly, and it feels like they, especially early on, I feel like they skipped a lot of like initial sort of slower um setup in order to immediately get into like some of the, I guess, earlier, you know, arcs where they can start fighting shit. Um and you can kind of feel it, right? Like they're bouncing between scenes quite quickly. There's a lot of shit happening. Um it's sort of introducing characters and kind of just quickly um scooting them off to the side, where I feel like the manga probably had a bit more time to, flesh some of these side characters out. Um, but yeah, I think the adaptation here is probably suffering quite a bit. I mean, it's somewhat understandable, I suppose, because um, again, this is a 23 volume manga, and
And
you know,
also, it was released a very long time ago, and the issue is, yes, it likely is still they could sell it to the production committee as it's still a brand, like it's just still a brand with value. But I feel like it wouldn't obviously get as much money as, again, say a current Shonen Jump series, right?
yeah,
In
yeah.
publication right now. So
Yeah, I doubt this got quite as much budget, so they're probably, it's incredibly unlikely that this is getting like a second core or second season. So they're
uh-huh.
probably like, these are the arcs that we want to do. These are probably the things people want to see. So we gotta jam these in, right?
Yeah.
So if it feels like there's a lot of truncation. I could be wrong. Maybe the manga is really fast early on too, but it feels like there's a lot of truncation. Um,
Hmm.
and it's quite, it can be a little bit hard to um sort of keep track of it, sort of exactly everything that's going on, because they jump through quite a bit of things in the first like 4 episodes. Like a lot of shit happened. um
Okay.
but yeah.
So are they using it? It's weird because like usually that sort. Well, no, if it's used more like in a promotional sort of style, it's usually they have the initial setup pretty well detailed, and then the later on it kind of goes they run off into the sunset. So if there's a lot of truncation at the beginning, that's a little bit more like they actually just want this anime to be something that's either standalone or they want the fan it's a little bit more for the fans, right? I'm guessing, like,
Yeah,
of the original
yeah.
Ubel Blatt manga, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like how I mean, this feels kind of disrespectful to say, but you know how the Berserk anime, right? Like the 2017
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Berserk anime, people were like, "Oh, I can't believe they skipped like the Lost Children arc," right? Where it's like,
Mhm.
do you really care? Do you really care that much? Um,
Yeah.
but it's like, um, it was pretty obvious that like there were arcs in that series, like the Berserk anime, that they were like, well,
Uh-huh.
we want to do these ones, right? Like they didn't really care about adapting everything, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, Especially because like there's a fucking lot. um they were like, there's these amount of arcs that we want to cover, and in order to cover that we need to cut out, this and that, right?
Mhm.
I feel like this is probably in a similar boat. It doesn't feel like they did it very smoothly, um but that's probably what's happening. um
Mhm.
but yeah, um
Yeah,
it just feels a bit weird.
yeah.
um but yeah,
Okay.
overall, this is fun, right? Like this is a fun show, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a
And it goes
it's
in. It
Yeah, for
leans
sure.
in.
I think it's a tricky one to recommend because um we're old. Um and to me this harkens back to, you know, um a different time, right? And obviously, some of the the younger anime viewers are probably not really going to be as interested in this sort of corny, sort of chuny ass um presentation. The world, the gritty, like fucking a random German story. Um, but like I think if you're into that, it's pretty awesome, I think. Um,
Mhm.
you know, again, I hear the the manga ends up just like randomly going into like statesmanship politics stuff, and the main character kind of just gets sidelined, which is really weird. Um, but I doubt the anime is gonna get to that because I think that's supposed to be like 100 plus chapters in or some shit. But
Mhm.
yeah, um, yeah, tricky recommend, but I'm having fun with it. I think
Yeah.
it's fun. It's stupid, but it's fun.
You would say it's good for those who know what the atmosphere of that series is like, who are into that sort of tone, is what
Yeah,
what
yeah, I
you would
think
say
I think
maybe,
so.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you rate it overall? Like, assuming that you are into this tone, this cheesy tone.
Um, I mean, it's sitting at a 6 right now on Mall.
Oh man.
Which I can't really blame people for rating it that because
Uh-huh.
again, I mean, the audience is different, right? Like they're not really super into that stuff, and
Yeah.
the animation can be shoddy. Um, and nowadays, like if you make an action series and you don't have fucking Mappa animating it, the kids these days hate it, right?
UFO
Yeah, like
table
they fucking
cutscenes. Yes.
they hate that shit. So I think 6 is a bit low. I'd probably rate it a little bit higher, probably like a soft 7. I'm having a lot of fun with it, I'll say. Um,
Hmm.
so you know, that's my, I guess, me bumping it up a little bit just because of that. I don't necessarily think 6 is like entirely unfair. But to me, I'd say it's a soft 7. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So near, you
Cool.
didn't answer the most important question.
What?
Who would win in a fight, Ubel or Ubel?
Name's Coinzel. So,
But he is the Ubel Blatt, right?
um, I guess I don't know.
Near, you never told us about the Ubel Blatt's gender.
You mean the main character?
Yes.
He's male.
Are you
Voiced
sure?
by yeah, he's voiced by Yuya Hirose. So
It's not her. It's not a hermaphrodite.
no, no,
Oh, that's a shame.
yeah.
But yeah, near you don't know who would win in a fight between the Ubel and the Ubel. Get it?
Um, I
You
don't know.
know
I
who?
guess it depends. Are you talking about like from Freerun or
No.
oh
What?
what?
Near you never watched Yu-Gi-Oh? You don't remember Ubel from GX?
Oh, sure. I don't think. I'm pretty sure the guy with the fucking swords that shoot out of his hand, that like eviscerates people would probably win. I
Yeah, but
think.
Ubel turned into a dragon.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Um, sure.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you very much, Nier. Again, this was another series I think we really did want to cover just because it was quite unique in terms of not necessarily in terms of like all the themes necessarily, but because we didn't expect this to come out in the year 2025. Let's be real here,
Yeah,
right? So
it's kind of a wild thing to get an
yeah, yeah, yeah.
adaptation this late.
And it's not
But
like it was such a long time coming that we suddenly it wasn't like for instance Spice and Wolf, where it was very obvious, even if it came out now, people would be like, "Hey, let's try it out." Yuba Wall was like, "What is happening here?"
yeah.
So again, if you kind of do like this more cheesier, nostalgic, older tone, the series does lean into it very much. It's not just oh, this character is gonna kill everything and get all the girls. It's not that sort of power fantasy. It's a little bit more a focus on that revenge, on that world. So if you do like that sort of tone, please do check this out.